Are we really following what's best for the client and the agency, or are we just taking anything and everything and just finding somewhere to put it and hoping for the best? Are we regularly reviewing our policies to make sure that they're staying up to date? Are we reaching out and proactive with our clients, or have they not heard from us in the last 12 years unless they've called us? Hello, friends. Stephen Harrington Dakota, the diva of insurance, here with Agency Performance Partners. Wanted to spend some time today talking about insurance agency acquisitions, and this is kind of like a playbook of things to look at, things to contemplate, and things to consider when you are looking to acquire an agency. Some of this is a little technical and adventurous, but I thought that it was really necessary that we include that. Not everything can be super sassy and fun like me, but we want to make it as easy as possible. But I thought that this was a really important topic. I see agencies purchase things all the time and they get so excited. I get phone calls and they're like, shut up, I just got a call. Somebody wants to sell, I'm going to buy. And I'm like, whoa. Like, have we looked at anything? No, they just told me they wanted to sell. So I'm going to go talk to them tomorrow and find out how much it is so I can close on it. And I'm like, well, we should probably do a little bit of research. We should probably talk about some things first. We want to make sure that this is going to be successful for your agency as well as for the person who's selling. And just because somebody says they want to go on a date with us doesn't mean that we have to jump on the opportunity because we're excited that somebody finally said yes. We want to take the time to take a step back, review all of the things before we get married, right? This is not an arranged marriage. This is a dating process at the beginning. We want to make sure it's going to be a good fit for both parties. So what we really want to look at is, I think the current marketplace is a roller coaster. What's happening with those appointments? What's happening in that area? And can we even merge the book of business? If we say yes and we want to purchase it, is the carrier partner going to allow it? In some instances they will, and some they may not. It depends on what's happening. So I think we really need to start at the beginning and define, why do you want to acquire? Are you trying to gain market share? Are you trying to grow quickly? Are you looking for new markets or a new area to be in? All of these things are important, but we have to really define that as we get into our reasoning. We then want to look at target markets or niches. What is it that we're really looking to expand our business with? Is it just general, like, I'm going to take anything that comes at me and try to make something out of it? Or are we going to be a little bit more strategic about it? If you have a niche and it's a truly defined market, it can be a little harder to grow because it is so refined. But if you find somebody else that has the same niche and they're looking to sell, it may be a great opportunity or a great way to expand your presence. It's also an easier way to grow if you're purchasing somebody else's book of business. But again, we have to make sure the carrier is going to allow that. We also want to look at what are the financial goals for the growth objective. As we dive into the vetting process, we have to establish growth objectives. Is it revenue or profitability? There's a difference between the two. I mean, I can grow my business substantially by throwing more money at it, but is it going to be profitable? Maybe, maybe not. We want to have growth targets in mind. And we really want to define what does that look like for us and what's the time, energy, and effort we're willing to put in on the owner or leadership side to make that happen. And can we do it organically and just focus on some of our internal processes? Or do we need to go outside and look to acquire? If we do get lucky enough to have the opportunity to purchase a book of business, or somebody's like, oh, I want to get married, let's do it. Let's stop and let's look at the current market, the current insurance market, making sure that we know that what's happening. Is there binding restrictions? Is the carrier withdrawn? What is happening to the existing book of business? We want to look at the current competition in the area of that agency. Is the market oversaturated in that area? Is there 10 agents all within the 10 block radius that all have the same markets or same access to markets? Because if an agency is acquired, sometimes customers will leave. And we want to make sure that they're not just going next door to our competition. We want to really look at the agency's reputation and brand presence as well. We've all heard of the agent that was like, oh, that one, they're shady. So you don't want to be the one that purchases the shady agency either. I mean, we want to make sure that we're really trying to do the best that we can to make smart business choices. And we don't want to ruin our own reputations by making a poor business decision either. So we want to look at the competition in the market. We want to look, does the agency have a solid reputation or brand presence? Can they bring us more visibility in an area possibly? And then we need to start looking at the financials for the agency. We want to review financial statements. We want to look at key performance indicators. We want to see where all the money is going and how much of that are we going to be able to keep or reallot. Basically, we want to look at what are all of the expenses that are going out as well as the money that's coming in. Some insurance agents get very creative in the things that they do with their agency and how they make money. And is that something we're going to be able to replicate, or are we just looking at pure commission? Is there agency fees or other services offered by the agency that's really bringing in some of that money that maybe you aren't currently doing or uncomfortable with? We want to make sure we're really looking at that and assess all of the streams of revenue and then look at what are the true profit margins, making sure that we're taking that time to analyze the risk. We then want to look for any potential liabilities. We want to make sure that the money coming in is great, but what does the historical claims data look like for the agency? For the last 5 years, 10 years, what were the loss ratios? Do they have any pending litigations or exposure to litigation that maybe we aren't aware of? If we don't ask the question, we don't know. And we want to make sure that they have a set process for new business renewals or cancellation. And if not, we're going to have to instill that. And that's going to be another learning curve for the team that we're going to be onboarding into our agency. So really making sure that we're identifying some of the potential risks and liabilities. Also looking at like standards. What are the standards of the agency? What is the minimum limits that they're writing, or is there any consistency? Are they taking anything and everything, or are they very specific and methodical in their approach to new business? Just like I said in the beginning, it's kind of like a dating process. Are we taking any client that knocks on the door and is like, I would like a policy? And they're like, yes, let's find you a policy. Or do they have some standards in place as to what they do and don't write? Or is it an extreme niche? If it's an extreme niche, that also has its own dangers, because if we lose the market, we're going to have nowhere to put all those people unless we have other markets in place already. We then want to look at the client base and retention rates. We want to look at over the history of the book, what is their historical client retention, as well as the policy retention. Are we moving people every renewal because they all want to save $5, or are we explaining the importance of coverage to clients and really helping them understand that it's not always the best idea to move around? So looking at the internal workings of how we're treating our clients is also very important. We want to look at the mix of business, personal, commercial benefits, whatever that may be, and does it make sense to what you currently have or where you want to be? We want to make sure that we are also looking at how much monoline versus cross-sold business is there and how much opportunity is there for additional revenue here in the future. We want to identify any of those untapped opportunities and look at additional opportunities that are available. We then want to evaluate our staff and the leadership team, if there is one, and we want to look at their expertise and how much experience does the team have. If we have a fairly new staff that is constantly changing, it says a lot about the agency. Looking at the turnover rate and employee satisfaction overall is really important. And sometimes we just have to take that deep breath and say, you know what, this isn't going to be a good fit for me because of your employee turnover issues. Is there a bad apple in the bunch that we just can't get rid of? Or is everybody getting along well and it's just a newer agency? So we really want to look at the employee experience and expertise, staff turnover rate, employee satisfaction. And then we also need to identify key personnel within the agency. If this person leaves, is it going to be devastating to the agency or to the acquisition? Or are we still going to be okay without them? So we want to get the buy-in from key players at the beginning to make sure that they're good with an acquisition, that they're happy to come to the new agency, and make sure that it's still going to be a harmonious fit. I worked with the agency in the past where they went to go talk to one of the key employees, and the employee was like, "What? I was going to buy the business." And the owner's like, "No, we had this conversation a couple months ago and you just filed bankruptcy. You're not able to afford a down payment and I can't finance it for you. So we already had this conversation a couple months ago. I told you I was going to be selling." And she literally just got up and was like, "F this," and quit. They left. It was a small office, and they now just didn't have their key person any longer. So that suddenly became a fire sale for acquisition. But again, it's a story to talk about. It's a thing to look at and identifying that. Had we waited until the agency was acquired and then found out that person left suddenly, it'd be even worse than finding out ahead of time. So we want to make sure that key players are involved and understand part of the process and they're happy to come on board, or that can also change the valuation and pricing of the agency. Everything ended up actually working well because that person ended up being a nightmare employee after we did some more investigation. But again, things can happen. The next thing we need to look at is licensing and regulatory compliance. We want to make sure that we are really looking at, do we have all of the states? Do we have all the licenses? Do we have all the things this agency has? Some agents, bless their soul, will go get an appointment to write one policy. They will go get fully licensed in a state to place one piece of business because their baby's mama's cousin's dad's best friend's dog sitter wanted to go buy some random risk in a far off land. And they're like, "Well, that's a policy. I'm going to get appointed in that state so that I'm going to go get my license in that state." So we really need to look at the mix of business and do we have all the right licenses in place? We also need to look at past or pending legal issues. Is there anything going on currently? Are they under any investigations? Is there any pending E&O claims? What are any regulatory violations by the staff or the agency itself? Look at the insurance commissioner's website. Go to your state and look at any complaints that have been filed with that producer, the staff, the agency in general, and just see what's there. And ask the question and get it in writing. Is there any pending E&O issues? Is there any other claims that you're aware of? Get everything in writing. Then assess the agency's adherence to best standards and practices. This one we talked about a little bit already. Are we really following what's best for the client and the agency, or are we just taking anything and everything and just finding somewhere to put it and hoping for the best? Are we regularly reviewing our policies to make sure that they're staying up to date? Are we reaching out and proactive with our clients, or have they not heard from us in the last 12 years unless they've called us? And then we want to look at the agency's technology and systems. We want to see, we talked about paper files, bless their souls. They can be converted, but it's an adventure. But what management system are they on? Are they using any third-party vendors? What tech stack does the agency currently have, and how easy does that complement or roll into your existing system? One of the biggest headaches we work with agencies is when you're merging two agencies together is deciding what system's best. And maybe yours isn't always the best, and you're going to have to update and retrain your team in a new system, just like the team coming in is going to have to be updated and trained on some new systems. So do we have the time, energy, and effort to put into place new systems, or be down for a day or two, or integrate everything correctly and then train everybody on the correct way to use it? And that really comes down to the cultural alignment of the agency. We want to make sure that we're really looking at the agency's culture and core values and making sure that they closely align with ours? Do you have a vision and value statement? Do you have guiding principles that ascertain how well you are handling your clients, your culture, your staff? Like, is it clearly defined, or is it just like, well, sometimes? So we want to make sure that we're really looking at our own culture, our own vision, our own values, as well as the vision, values, and culture of the agency we're looking to acquire. We want to look at the compatibility of the two. If you are a very conservative office that wears suits to work every day and you're going to an agency where they show up in t-shirts and shorts, and you want them to adapt, you may have some issues, and vice versa. If they're coming from a very structured, regimented agency and you're a little bit more loosey-goosey, sometimes the teams will have trouble adapting. So we want to make sure that we're identifying these things and coming up with a game plan for what that looks like. We want to be cohesive, and we want to make sure that we're working together. We have to remember that it's not always our way or the highway. Sometimes it is a blend of the two, give and take from both sides to make things happen. So we want to make sure that we are prepared for that. We then also want to conduct in-person meetings and interviews and address any concerns directly with any of the team. Like, a lot of times people will find out that there's an acquisition going on and there's lots of questions. So once we're 98% sure everything's a go, start doing some interviews with the new team, address some of their concerns, have a meeting, talk to them about what's happening, and put their minds at ease. We can't hide from it once people know what's happening. We just have to kind of rip off that Band-Aid and address some of the issues. And don't be afraid to seek professional help. I feel like I need a dramatic pause on this one. Don't be afraid to seek professional help. There is so many people I talk to that don't want to bring in an attorney, a CPA, a advisor like us, somebody that helps with a lot of these processes, or somebody that's going to do a third-party valuation, because they're like, well, that's just costs so much money. And I'm like, it costs a whole lot of money, but it saves a whole lot of headache, right? And really, what is the risk versus reward? We want to make sure that we're using the experts in the industry to help us make some of these decisions. We want to look at market trends, regulatory landscape, and operational things. And we want to know that we are making the right decision when we make a purchase. This is a huge investment. We want to engage legal and financial advisors to make sure that we're doing the right thing, that employee manuals are up to date and correct, that we are getting a contract that is beneficial to us. We don't want to just take some law.com or whatever website we found to write up a buy-sell agreement, because that can come with a lot of pitfalls. And we want to make sure that we're really looking at any third-party valuation reports. We need a solid valuation. It can't just be like, oh, well, I think I got a good deal. And the other person's like, oh, I got a screaming deal, right? Or we don't want to feel like we got screwed in the end either. So take the time and make the investment, and not everything that you pay for is going to come out and turn into something you want to purchase. But that's part of the cost to doing business and the part of acquisition that can be a little spendy. We then want to make sure that we're really going over and negotiating the terms and conditions of the acquisition. We want it to be favorable to both parties, but we also want to make sure that we are protecting ourselves. We really want to be strategic in how we are looking at the valuation and pricing of the agency. And we can't do that without a clear vision of what the book of business is, what are the expenses, what is the expectations, and what do we have to do moving forward to keep that as a viable moving business. And then we want to make sure that we are coming up with a timeline for integration. Once we sign on the dotted line, what does that integration timeline look like? Is it 1 day, 1 month, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? There can be different timelines for different things, but we need to clearly define all of those things, including the merging of systems, processes, and cultures. We want to make sure that the team understands what that timeline is like and what we do there. And we want to manage the change and communication clearly so that we aren't having a whole lot of people coming up with their own scenarios on the back end about, ooh, what about this? What about this? What about this? We want to take the time to be clear and concise in our action. And yes, timelines might change, but a timeline that changes is better than no timeline at all. And we want to really give the staff an opportunity to voice their concern and to alleviate any uncertainty as ownership is changing and what's happening with the agency. We are happy to help as much as we can. We do offer our agency assessments and many other tools. So if you'd like to book some time with us, please feel free to visit us on our website, agencyperformancepartners.com. And I wish you luck in all of your acquisition journeys. Until next time, we'll talk soon.